Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Feels like a huge echo. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. No, don't be shy. Come on forward. It's nice. We've got an intimate crowd this evening for Shabbat, and with those of us watching online, lovely to be with all of you, both here and over the interwebs. As we join in friendship and faith, we begin our service this evening on page 10 with Hine Matov, how good it is for us to be together.
Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
And it is a joy to call forward someone who brings such light to our community, and especially to our young ones in religious school, Roger Karp, our fifth grade teacher. I think our sole fifth grade teacher. He's taking on the entire crowd of them, and it is a large crowd. So it's a joy to call you up to have you light our Shabbat candles this evening.
Thank you, Rabbi.
We're on page 2 and 3.
So I will read the first 3 lines at the top of page 3, and then if you would all join me for the next 3 lines. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbos. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Shabbos.
Thank you. Todah.
Thank you, Roger, again, for all the light you bring here to each and every one of us. We turn to page 23 as we will read Psalm 93. We'll read from Psalm 93 responsively. Adonai is sovereign, God is robed in grandeur. Adonai is robed, God is girded with strength. The world stands firm, it cannot be shaken.
Your throne stands firm from of old. From eternity you have existed.
The ocean sounds, Adonai. The ocean sounds its thunder. The ocean sounds its pounding. Above the thunder of the mighty waters, more majestic than the breakers of the sea, is Adonai, majestic on high. Your decrees are indeed enduring. Holiness befits your house, Adonai, for all times. We'll turn to page 24 for Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem is a beautiful song that we sing on Shabbat to bring us, typically, traditionally, it would be sung on the way from going to synagogue to one's home, and it was said that there would be 2 ministering angels that would bring in Shabbat and sort of guard and guide the person home safely for Shabbat. So we bring in those ministering angels of peace with us tonight, the Shabbat. We're on page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Tzeitichem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu.
We turn to page 27 and read responsively, "Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, on ripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair.
Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways."
We continue with Chatzi Kaddish on page 26.
Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayedecho Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kari v'yimeru. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach, le'alam le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekudisha. B'richu le'ela min kol berchata v'shihirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, v'yimeru. Amen.
We continue on page 27. Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence. We rise for our call to worship, the Baruch Hu, on page 28.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
We continue with Ma'ariv Aravim, the prayer, thanking God for bringing on the evening, for putting the stars and the moon in their course in the sky, on page 30. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro Ma'ariv Aravim, bechokma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna meshane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, Umsader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, uma'avdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai tzivaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch alenu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. We continue on page 33 for Ahavat Olam. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We continue with the watchword of our faith, the Shema, on page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. We continue with the Ve'ahavta on page 36. We'll read together in the English. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. We read responsively on page 39, just before we continue with Mi Chamocha, the song that our ancestors sang as they crossed from slavery in Egypt to freedom on the shores, the other side of the shores of the Sea of Reeds. On page 39, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot,
that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness,
that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osei fele, nora tehilot osei fele, malechutecha ra'u vanecha, Bokei ayam, lifnei Moshe uMiriam, ze'eli anu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch, Adonai yimloch, le'olam נאמר, כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
We turn to Hashkivenu, the prayer our ancestors used to recite at nighttime, a time of deep uncertainty and fear for them. They wondered if they would make it through the night. And while we don't have those fears, those same fears at night, nighttime is often a time when our uncertainties come out. And so we too ask for God to provide a sheltering presence, a Sukkat Shalom, a shelter of peace over all of us. We read together on page 43. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei Sukkat Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. We turn to Vishamru on page 44. Let's hear all of us nice and loud together.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et Shabbat, la'asot et Shabbat, לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש.
We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. We turn to the Tefillah, the center of our worship service this evening on page 46, and we rise as one.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot ve'Imahot, Umevi Geula Lihivnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah rav lehoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar, michamolcha ba'al kevurot, Umito melach, melech memit umechaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol, Baruch ata Adonai, mechaye hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yahalalucha selah, Baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
You may be seated. On page 55, we read responsively, "May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat." And this evening for Ritzei, we turn to page 57. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ba'amcha Yisrael, u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel, u'tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands. You are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'odcha levadcha b'yir'ah na'avod. We turn to our prayer for Thanksgiving, our Hoda'ah prayer on page 58 for Modim.
Modim anachnu lach, you are our God, rock of our life. Modim anachnu lach, you are our God, shield of salvation, forever and ever. Modim anachnu lach, forever. Morning, noon, and night, Modim anachnu lach. Modim anachnu lach. We sing your praises, we sing your praises. Modim anachnu lach. Compassionate one, merciful God, forever and ever. Modim anachnu lach, forever. Morning, noon, and night, Modim anachnu lach. Our lives are in your hands. Our souls are in your keeping. Your miracles surround us day by day. Our lives are in your hands. Our souls are in your keeping. Your never-ending love, as always, never-ending love has been our hope. Modim anachnu lach. We will never stop praising your name, modim anachnu lach. We will never stop praising your name, praising your name, modim anachnu lach.
That was a beautiful rendition of our Hoda'ah prayer, our prayer for Thanksgiving, especially at this time of year of Thanksgiving in our American calendar as well. We turn to page 61 for a prayer for peace. Nation shall not take up sword against nation. They shall never again know war. Don't stop after beating the swords into plowshares. Don't stop. Go on beating and make musical instruments out of them. Whoever wants to make war again will have to turn them into plowshares first. We continue now with a moment for Tefillat Halev, the prayers of the heart.
Ratzon imre fi vegion libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri vegali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable unto you, O God, my rock and my redeemer, my rock and my redeemer, Adonai tzuri vegali. Amen. Amen.
Our thoughts turn now to loved ones who are in need of a prayer for healing. We turn from a moment ago a prayer of shalom, a prayer for peace, into now a prayer for healing, Misha Beirach, a prayer for refuah shlema, a full healing, which has the same root as the word for shalom. So we pray for that peace and full healing. Refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, a healing of body and a healing of soul. At this time, our Congregation Shalom community is praying for Chandel Bat Frida Malka, Julie Borikoff, Margot Raz, Carol Dubin, Sharon Rotman, Steve Teplinski, Esther Cohen, Lisa Furstad, HaChazan Sarah Rachel Bat Yocheved Alexander, Avram Ben Naphtali, Marilyn Harmon, Sophia Rubenstein, Ilana Himmelfarb, Avraham Bat Frida, Marla Chakowski, Michael Sychek, David Rotter, Natalie Cohen, Keith Mandel, Jamie Kryman, Ela Bat Natan Vishoshana, Mark Cook, Luke Cooper, Jason and Keely Roberts, Dr. Susie Mendelson, Michaela Helen Berg, Michal Stroud, Susan Garrison, Ron Slavin, Peter Rotter, Eileen Shippen, Roger Cook, Neil Pinsky, Michael Keller, Baruch Laser Ben Esther, Layla Rosen, David Kleinman, Batya Riva Bat Yosef Miriam, Meir Ben Herschel Venechama, Pinchas Ben Avraham Vachaya, Avraham Ben Moish Ve'emunah, Al Rosman, Wendy Schuster, Ann Becker, Kathy Baker, Hope Marins, Janet Van Zyl, Ann Katz, Mosi Ramirez, Diane Redman, Mark Ackerman, Ruth Resnick, Ronald Barmazel, Jeff Zemmel, Eileen Hirsch, Carolyn Newman, Magina Avira, Devora Leah, Yocheved Sarah Leah, Kelly Adiniak, Avram David Ben Nisan Nechanyu Vesprinza, Richard Kransberg, Elaine Keller, and Ricky Spiegel. In addition to these loved ones whom we are praying for, if there are people that you are praying for who are in need of refuat nefesh, refuat guf, a healing of body and soul, and you feel comfortable, please share their names with our community. We turn to these words of Misha Berach on page 253.
Misha Berach Avoteinu Mikor HaBracha Le'imotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishe Berach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha La'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thanksgiving is a time of gratitude. Hopefully, we are able to gather around the table with family and friends, take part in a delicious meal, and share all for which we are thankful. In my family, my brother and sister-in-law brine the turkey overnight and put it in the smoker, while my mom makes a slew of side dishes, including my favorites, challah stuffing and mashed sweet potatoes baked with marshmallows on top. I usually run around with my nieces and nephew, laughing and staying out of the way of the grown-ups in the kitchen. When we sit down to our feast, we talk about how grateful we are to spend time together and for the other blessings in our lives. Right now, that tradition might be a little bit more difficult to fulfill. I've heard from congregants and colleagues alike that it feels different this year. We have much to be grateful for, while at the same time, we cannot ignore all of the horrors people continue to face in Israel and Gaza. Families have been torn apart, whole communities eviscerated, infrastructure destroyed, slowing down needed supplies. All one has to do is turn on the news to hear reports of the utter devastation of communities in the western tip of Israel and northern reaches of Gaza. I do not need to describe the barbaric images one can scroll through on one's phone. As a side note, I do hope that people will take care of themselves, not subjecting themselves to a steady stream of those images. There are ways to remain up to date on the conflict without falling prey to the tactics of psychological warfare of Hamas. Spreading beyond the war itself, as is always the case when conflict heats up involving the state of Israel, anti-Semitism is on the rise. I saw a video of the Russian airport mobbed by citizens lying in wait for what they thought were Jews arriving on an El Al flight. They ran through the terminal screaming hateful words, muscling past security, fighting their way into the hallway connecting the flight to the airport. Little did they realize the flight brought back Russian citizens, children who had received medical care at Israeli hospitals. There have been protests, gleeful riots in the United States, Canada, and other countries around the world, with people supporting Hamas. It is one thing to support a free and democratic Palestinian state, and another thing entirely to actively cheer on a known terrorist organization. You've probably heard similar rhetoric on American college campuses from students and professors alike. A professor from Cornell University called the attacks of October 7th exhilarating, while 100 professors from Columbia signed on to describe them as military action, rather than acknowledge the truth of the barbaric terrorist atrocities. We saw last week in Madison a group of neo-Nazis marching down State Street, waving swastika flags and chanting things like, "Israel is not our friend," and "there will be blood." Fear permeates the air in these awful times. We can identify then with our ancestor Jacob, who also feared for his life in this week's Torah portion, Vayetze. While the reason for fear resided in his heart, stealing the blessing of the firstborn from his brother Esau is different than ours, we can understand his desire for safety. Jacob ran away, hoping to find protection in his uncle Laban's home. Tired from running, Jacob took respite for the night, finding a stone to use as a pillow. After falling asleep, Jacob dreamt of a ladder with angels going up and coming down, traveling between earth and heaven. Then Jacob saw God, who told him that in addition to the land stretched out before him for him and his descendants, God would provide protection for Jacob. V'hine, anochi imach, ushmarticha bechol asher telech, v'hashivoticha el ha'adama. And here I am, with you. I will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this soil. God vowed to guard Jacob's life. Ushmarticha, I will guard or watch over you. What a powerful encounter. It doesn't end there. Jacob awoke from his slumber awestruck and said, "God is in this place and I did not know it." He continued and vowed, "If God is with me and watches over me on this path that I am taking and gives me bread to eat and clothes to wear, and if I return safely to my father's house, then will Adonai be with me. Then will Adonai be my God." Rachel Haverlock in the Torah, a women's commentary, analyzed the event saying, Jacob drives a hard bargain with God. Jacob wants real-life indicators that God will watch over him wherever he goes and will return him to his native soil. He pledges that if he meets with success on his journey, then the God of his father's household will be his God. Wow. Jacob met God, and Jacob had some conditions. This from Jacob, young man fleeing home after lying, tricking his father and older brother, fearing for his life from his justifiably irate brother. One might think Jacob was not in a place to speak of God that way. How might we relate Jacob's boldness with our own? In the face of tragedy, amidst threats to our own security as Jewish people, we have what to be grateful for also. When we came together at Shalom on October 9th, the whole community filled our space and our hearts. We heard from allies, representatives of the Milwaukee government, including our mayor, Cavalier Johnson. My dance studio from back home put up a billboard on one of the busiest highways in Kansas City that reads, "Thank you to the Jewish people, the Jewish community who add such beauty to our lives, our families, and our community. We are with you." We brought a delegation of 200 people from the Milwaukee Jewish community to the March for Israel in Washington, D.C. On the National Mall, we heard Jewish and Israeli music, listened to politicians and actress Deborah Messing, who support Israel and American Jewry. At that same march, we heard from several families of hostages. From Alana Zaychek, whose cousins were abducted by Hamas, we heard, "To demand the release of the hostages is not an act of politics, nor is it a cry for war. It is an act of love and a cry for humanity. And love is the only thing that can repair our shattered hearts and bring us back together in the name of peace." Even with our gratitude, we continue to demand the release of hostages from Hamas's control. We strive to maintain our humanity, our love for those suffering. In the depths of our pain, we fight for all human life and dignity. Jacob demanded God uphold God's end of the bargain, provide for him and his family, bring him safely home to his father's land. We too demand God uphold the continued vow to our people that our Israeli siblings and those from countries around the world be cared for, given proper nutrition, medical treatment, and ultimately be released to return to their homes. One thing we can be grateful for, the release of 24 more hostages, including Alana Zaychek's two cousins, Danielle Aloni and her daughter Amelia. Mixed with our gratitude, we hold in our hearts the almost 200 other hostages still captive. May we continue to pray for their release, demanding action from our local and national government officials to hold international focus on the plight of these innocents. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who frees the captive. We begin to conclude our service this evening on page 282 with Aleinu. We rise, and it's an honor to call forward David and Abby Nash to open our ark doors in honor of David's father's passing. His yard site.
Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, la'tet kedula le'yotze breshit, shelo asanu kegoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Our hearts turn to those loved ones who are no longer with us, and though their physical presence is no longer of this earth, we hold them in our hearts and in our minds. They guide us each and every day. At this time, we commemorate those lives during the period of Shiva of Maxine Cohn and Harriet Goldman, and those during the period of Shloshim of Bibi Burkhoff, Sonia Cortez, Alfred Fiel, Reagan Juliet Field, Barry Levine, Richard Lieberman, and Pete and Elaine Schwartz. And those whose yahrzeits occur at this time: Joan Berlin, Paul Burns, Sherry Burson, Jean Cantor, Pamela Childs, Burton Cohen, Hyman Cohen, Sarah Durzan, Fred Jack Emmerich, Lawrence Evans, Gertrude Feingold, Lou Foddy, Susan Gallen, Lillian Glick, Gilbert Goldman, Philip Gaulish, Samuel Granoff, Arnold Herstand, Max Hoffman, Solomon Holman, Stephen Keene, Molly Kleiner, Joseph Kohlenberg, Teresa Kritzik, Mary Kay LeBranch, Samuel Lakem, Morris Lang, Stanley Levy, Mary Levine Liebman, Rose Mayerson, James Minash, Harold Nash, Guy Neville, Max Newberger, Ida Ozenoff, Florence Pinkert, Naomi J. Pivar, Evelyn Hertz Pollock, Ann Radin, Lester Vance Solinsky, Doreen Salzberg, Harold Sheffield, Edith Nancy Sklar, Ruth Stein, Sidney Toller, Simon Tolkien, Morris Turek, Dr. Marvin Wagner, Rachel Walchuk, and Jean Wilkinson. If there are loved ones whom you are thinking of who are no longer with us, but you hold their memories dear and you'd like to share with our community, I invite you to do so as my eyes meet yours. In addition to those loved ones we hold dear, we also think of those who perished during the Holocaust, as well as those who have died due to acts of war and terror around our globe, especially those in Israel and Gaza at this time. We also think of those who have died due to the virus of racism and xenophobia, as well as those who no longer have anyone to say Kaddish for them. We turn to these sacred words of Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 294, and we rise as a community. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach chirutei ve'amlich malchutei, b'chayachon uvyomachon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shmei d'kudasha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Osei Shalom B'imromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. And together we say, Amen. You may be seated. Do we have any announcements this evening?
Unofficially or officially?
Officially, I'm going to take it as no. So we have Torah study tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. as well as services at 10 a.m. And there is no religious school this Sunday. Coming up, we have our Hanukkah Shabbat, which begins at 5:30 p.m. I believe it's on December 8th, Friday, December 8th. And with a dinner as well as services afterwards, we invite you to bring your Chanukiot to come light. We'll have tables up here with all of the families be able to light Chanukiot together. It's really a joy. And a lovely oneg afterwards. Please register for that ahead of time. We also have on the 10th a Hanukkah family song fest with Cantor Perper as well as some of his musical friends. And it's going to be a blast. We'll do a lot of Hanukkah tunes. Is there anything to add specific about that?
No, that was good.
Okay. See, I don't forget to plug you. And then there will be an event on December 13th hosted by the Federation here at Shalom. More details on that to follow. So, with all of those announcements, I believe it is time to turn to Kiddush, which can be found on page 5, and we will rise together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. L'chaim.
L'chaim. And for our closing song, we'll turn to page 321 for Adon Olam.
Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra le'ed nasa v'chefzo kol azai melech shemo nikra ve'acharei kiglot hakol levado yimloch nora ve'hu haya ve'hu hoveh ve'hu yiyeh Betifara vehu echad ve'ein sheni lehamshilo lehachbira beli reshit beli tachlit velo ha'oz ve'hamisra vehu eli v'chai goali ve'tzor chevli be'eit tzara vehu nisi umanos li menat kosi beyom ekra beyado avkin ruchi be'eit ishan ve'aira ve'im ruchi keviati, Adonai li velo ira.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.